For the Women's Center, one of the big reasons that it exists is that I'm so aware that women, experience so much anxiety and stress when they're in that misalignment. So many are working so hard to build something big, and you hear it on social media all the time. You want to reach that $1 million goal. You want to have that 6 figures. You hear this all the time, and I appreciate that we need a roof over our head and food to eat. But those are just the basics to feed our bodies and have a shelter without the soul being nourished. I just want to have a place, and I have a place, where they can experience that living water and rest. I think it's very needed.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the Crystal Clear Business Podcast. Today, we have Janie Seltzer, and we get to hear about her wonderful women's program that she has. And thank you for joining us today, Janie. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Crystal. It's a pleasure to be here. And so what I have is a Women's Center for Soul Care, and it's evolved through many years. But it is a place where women can nourish their soul so that every aspect of their life, their business, their family, their community can flourish.
I love that. In today's busy society, we can often forget that we are a spiritual being having this human experience.
It's so true. I really am an advocate of the soul, of being. A lot of people don't even think about the fact that the real part of them, the part that makes them animated, that helps their thinking mechanism, their emotions, it's all the soul. It's the soul that God breathed into us that enlivens us and enables us to do life well, and also to be connected with our Creator.
Yes, and you can feel that difference when you're in alignment versus when you're in the resistance zone. And feeling that alignment from your soul and knowing that you're living with passion and purpose, it's so much different than that paralyzed feeling of not being able to break through. And I've experienced both. I've been that person that was paralyzed and not able to move forward. And I've also now become a person who's liberated and lives my life in terms of being a vessel and trying to find ways every day to make the world just a little bit more sparkly.
I love that. And you do, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, Janie.
Yeah, I think that there are so many women and men, but I'm more focused on, well, I'll tell you more about that. I actually do teach men and women. But for the Women's Center, one of the big reasons that it exists is that I'm so aware that women, experience so much anxiety and stress when they're in that misalignment. So many are working so hard to build something big, and you hear it on social media all the time. You want to reach that $1 million goal. You want to have that 6 figures. You hear this all the time, and I appreciate that we need a roof over our head and food to eat. But those are just the basics to feed our bodies and have a shelter without the soul being nourished, without the love of God. If I can be very specific, the living waters. Oh, it's so funny. I recently was talking to someone, and actually I was at Trader Joe's yesterday, and I've known this person for 25 years, and she said, "Janie, you seem younger than when I met you 25 years ago." And I said, "Well, thank you, Susan." Her name was Susan. "I appreciate that." She says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, of course I'm praying, but I'm also drinking that living water, the living water, not the vodka." That's another story from that, she wanted to know about, but I'm like, no, that's not what I drink. I'm drinking the living water day by day. And I think that refueling, that every day we meet all kinds of challenges, and I've been through plenty. I've been through devastating times in my life, like everyone. We all have a story. I know you have yours, and in fact, that's how we met. We heard each other telling our stories, and I think there was a connection there in many ways. I've had my dark valleys, but there's a shepherd that has stayed by my side and has helped me walk through those dark valleys so that I could find the rest and peace. So I really want to offer that to others. I just want to have a place, and I have a place, where they can experience that living water and rest. I think it's very needed.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit of a holistic / spiritual secret to success is kind of my work is like a little bit of that intersection between science and spirituality.
Nice.
But I know that the higher your frequency and vibration, the slower you age. And most people don't realize that. And when you're living in a high authenticity and in joy and love and peace and purpose, those are some of the higher echelon frequencies and vibrations. So you are aging slower scientifically and spiritually because of that connection that you have, because your vibration is so high. So
wow.
that's you can go tell your friend that the reason that you're aging slower is because your vibration is so high.
Oh, that's fascinating. That is really fascinating. And it's interesting because it was never my intention, like, I don't want to age. My intention has been, I just want to stay in alignment with my God, and I want to follow him. I want to do, he is, God is the source. He's the source, and he's the highest power. You spoke about vibration. Woo! So when our vibration is connected with God, that's how it increases. So it's interesting that aligns with science.
Yes.
Very good. Good information.
Yeah.
I started this Women's Center for Soul Care, speaking of age, because at 58, which was quite a few years ago, I went back to school. I went back for a master's degree in theology with an emphasis in spiritual direction. Because spiritual direction is all about, instead of just therapy where it's just me and you, there's a sense of a third in the room. And I had a passion to pursue that. And I am a spiritual director now. I traveled back and forth to LA for 4 years. And my thesis, at 62, I wrote a thesis about creating a women's center for soul care. And it's so interesting. I don't mind saying my age. I'm 72, and it has become reality. But in the meantime, and this is an interesting thing for our viewers to be aware of, I think God gives, if we're in alignment with him, he gives vision. And the vision is sometimes very large, right? It's God's size. It's not our size. And I think one of the challenges is to let that vision unfold as it needs to. And frankly, we're being prepared for that vision as well, right? So that was my thesis. 2 years later, I was asked to be the spiritual director for the Zig Ziglar International Community, which is what I'm doing. I've been doing ever since, and I will continue to do that because it reaches an audience all over the world. I have been honored to be in that place. So twice a week, I'm on the Zig Ziglar Facebook page. Mr. Ziglar passed away. You probably are aware. And for those of you who don't know who Zig Ziglar is, because I get blank looks sometimes, Mr. Ziglar was a precursor to the Tony Robbins. Everybody knows who Tony Robbins is. He was one of the early guys to get out there and inspire and encourage people in their business and in their life. And he is the one who created the wheel of life, where every portion of ourself, our finances, our profession, our family, our community, our social life, our physical life, and our spiritual life are healthy. So when I was asked to be the spiritual director, I went through all of that training. So I'm actually a trainer for Zig Ziglar, and a coach, a certified coach. Mr. Ziglar passed away in 214, or maybe 212. I may have that off. I think it's 212. But his son, Tom Ziglar, has carried on the legacy, and it has been my privilege to help do that. Now, the reason I brought that up is that I completely forgot about that vision back there when I wrote that thesis. Yeah. I was so engrossed in nourishing the souls of those who are listening. In fact, my motto, you may not know this, is nourish soul and live whole. So I've been doing that for 8 years. My husband joined me when COVID happened, but that's another story. So just about a year ago, I would say, a year to 2 years ago, God sent someone who happens to be in the room with me here from Rhode Island, a younger version of me, who has encouraged me to start again with retreats and women's outreach and that sort of thing. And I didn't know back then that I needed another person because I've been doing this for so many years, who could come alongside me, right? Mm-hmm. Who could help me pull off the vision. And so along came Kathy. And so now together, she and I are doing this, and it's a whole new, it's like at 72, I'm going strong, and by God's grace, I hope to keep going for 30 more years. How about that?
I love it. I'm here for it.
I'm so glad.
But it's interesting culturally in other societies. If you look at the blue zones, there are other countries that, as you age, there's not that that downward spiral. There's not that. A lot of this is mindset and the mental stigmas and the social economical factors that can come into play here. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, you're so right. And that's why we call it holistic Christian spirituality, because if we don't take care, I'm very aware of the blue zone, and I have studied the blue zones. It's interesting because I was, when I read about it, I read what you need to eat, what you need to do to stay healthy. I was already doing those things. But again, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know there was a blue zone. And so it confirmed to keep doing it. I'm very intentional about eating healthy. I don't eat junk. I figure every calorie I put into this body, I want it to nourish my body so that it's an engine. It's a temple of the Holy Spirit. It's the soul has to dwell in a healthy place, right? Yeah. And and mentally too, there are a lot of people who are struggling with mental health. And I've had some members in my family who have had that as well. And I still do. I encourage people who have mental health issues to see a doctor to find out what will stabilize their brain. Because, the soul, if you're interested, is comprised of our brain, our emotions, our will, our personality. That's the soul. And in the midst of the soul is the spirit. And it's the spirit that God is energizing. But we as humans need to be taking care of the rest of this. I mean, he helps us, but we need to be mindful that we keep a healthy mental attitude. And we do that by gratitude every single day, right?
Absolutely.
And other ways as well. I'm a big proponent of meditation and prayer, reading, devotional reading, because what it does, it connects me with something bigger than just the day-to-day mundane activities that we all have to do. We all have to take care of ourselves. We have to clean our homes. We have to wash our clothes. We have to shower. We have to do our hair, right? We have to do all of that. But if that's all we're doing, if we're just caught in this like a hamster in a wheel and we don't stop, that's another thing. Quiet is essential to mental and spiritual health. And I emphasize that a great deal in my teaching. And I'm an extrovert. You can probably tell. I get energized. I love being with people. But extroverts really need to withdraw And introverts are already, they're comfortable with that, but then they have to step out. So you have to know who you are, and that's a big part of growing, understanding who you are as well as who God is. It's called double knowledge by the early church fathers.
Yeah. And there's also that, God eternal within the body. I don't know
yes.
if you've looked into the God code, that our DNA is literally stamped, that
Literally.
made by God,
Absolutely.
which is really incredible.
It is.
But it's also that we have this power within us.
Yes.
It's not something we're supposed to be seeking.
Yes.
So knowing that, when something does come into our mind, that we get a vision of something.
Yes.
There's a reason that we're supposed to be seeing that. It's a reason that it's like a gentle nudge of walking in the right direction versus feeling that resistance. And the more you wake up, and it's kind of like a muscle too, the more you do it, the more it's easier to understand.
It's so true.
But some people don't understand that the willpower that we have is only 5% of our operating power.
Mm-hmm.
And then our subconscious mind is 95% of our operating power. And that's what I help people with. Sometimes we do bring in Holy Spirit or and create that as we're finding those blocks so that they can help move forward.
Yes.
But the superconscious, which doesn't get talked about as much, which is connected to the subconscious, really is God, really is source. So in essence, we are already tapped in. We're already plugged into this infinite source of energy and power and potential. It's whether we can recognize it and turn to the right channel and then take action on it daily. And I think that's where repetition comes in. And like you're saying, consistently finding ways, probably through rituals like morning routines, prayer. I know I always wake up and I visualize what I'd like to see my day. I spend a moment in gratitude. I offer myself for the day to open up like that vessel to be used in ways that I know that I won't even understand.
Right.
Which is okay.
It is okay.
Yeah.
It is okay. And it's interesting you should say that because that aligns with Scripture, because we're told in Ecclesiastes that God has planted eternity in our soul. So that's what you're talking about with the superpower. He's planted that. We just, as humans, need to be intentional to know that there is a call that's bigger, and live this life can be a place of joy and a place of peace and a place of fulfillment if we are properly tuned in. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have major challenges, and I've had mine. And that is a purpose as well. There's a big purpose in that, because we're actually in the struggle, we're growing. In the struggle where we have to learn to access talk about muscle, our muscle of faith, when we feel like that God has left us and there is no hope. I had a period in my life of about 4 years that took me down, and it was a double whammy of challenges in our professional life and challenges in our family life. That at one point I said to God, if you are who you say you are, you better help me here, because I'm dying on the inside. That's how I felt. I felt like I had lost everything that made sense in my life. I won't go into all those details, but the most stunning and miraculous things began to happen when I cried out, when I said, I'm dying here. You've got to help me. I actually, you talked about rituals. I like that word, because if you establish a practice, a spiritual practice, and you implement that, I implemented, but way back when I was 16 years old, and I have pretty much kept it. I mean, yes, of course, I'm human, and you mess up sometimes, you get off the track, but but the ritual was deeply embedded in me. So when this happened and my world got dark, I continued with my habit, my ritual, if you will, my practice. I like the word practice of showing up early in the morning. I love the morning. I love to get up before the birds. I like to hear the first birds singing in the morning. But at any rate, I would show up and I would just, instead of jumping into my scripture or jumping into my prayer journal, I just sat.
Mm-hmm.
And the sadness. I think it's so important to be real and to be where you are. I sat in the sadness. I sat in the pain. And I just waited. I waited for answers. I waited for help. And that was such an important time because I actually learned what it means to be still and to know that He is God.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard that broken down, but be still and know that I am God. Be still and know. Be still. Be.
Mm.
And I sat in the be. And then one day, the lights came on. All of a sudden, words started coming. And when I say started coming, I mean a river started. I grabbed for my journal and my pen, and I started writing what I was hearing word for word. It was a lot. It was powerful, and it was a promise that He was going to raise me into a cathedral that nothing could destroy, even though I felt like I was destroyed. And when I finished hearing it, I took it into my bedroom where my husband was, and I said, I want you to hear this. Some of it I don't like. And I read it to my husband, and he looked at me with great strength, and he said, don't change a word. And I said, okay, I won't. And that poem began a flood of poetry. I'm a poet of the spiritual life that just kept coming and coming and coming. So I became a poet of the spiritual life, not by my own choice, but by gift. And we all receive gifts in the darkness. Mm-hmm. Something cracks, right? Something cracks open. Mm-hmm. And if we're attentive and if we're open to the right source, we'll be given great gifts, whether it be music or art or poem or architecture. God he's the builder. He's the poet. So that that stream kept coming and still comes. So I've got hundreds of poems. But what I began to notice over time is that they sort of fell in categories. And that I looked back on my life, which I think is very important. We all need to look back and I think it was Thoreau, I'm not sure who said this, an unexamined life is not worth living. And that's what I did. I re-examined where I'd come from. And in that, I discovered that there were actually 7 sacred signposts that I had seen in my life where God was, but I wasn't necessarily aware of it. Mm-hmm. The sweetness, the secrets, the surrender, the struggle, the stillness, the suddenlies, and the seeing. And so now this women's center is a parable of the soul. It goes up a hillside that was covered at one time in 20,000 pounds of pine needles and tree branches. Wow. Yeah, God gave me a vision to turn it into a retreat center. And so it is now, but it was quite the labor of love. So at any rate, you go up the hillside, and along the hillside are the 7 sacred signposts. And there's an invitation to examine each one, to see where you are in your journey. What does this mean when I hit a suddenly? What does this mean when I need to learn stillness? There's so much to take in.
Yeah, I think our audience can probably resonate with that feeling that you had where you were stuck for those 4 years. For me, it was 5 years, just a little bit about similar. But we can have these life-altering moments. Sometimes they're smaller. Sometimes they're, like you said, just a informational download that came. For me, I had an accident with my children in the car. And I wrote about this in my first charity book. And I was driving my children to school, and a truck had cut me off that had a bunch of pool equipment in it.
Wow.
And all that pool equipment went in the middle of the road, and I couldn't drive forward. So I I was in a big SUV, a big Denali. I put it in park, and then I walked behind the SUV. Well, it was an older vehicle, and somehow it popped out of park, but waited till I was behind it to somehow pop out. So it hit me. I went flying in the air, and I landed right below the tire. So my body was kind of contorted. I'm laying there on the ground, and my children are in the car.
Oh, Crystal.
And my youngest son just had to pass on dissecting a squid because he said, "Mom, that was God's beautiful creature. He couldn't cut into it." So he's so sensitive and so loving. And I'm thinking, this gentle little soul is in the vehicle right now. And his mom is about to be eviscerated. I was about to be run over. So there were cars behind me, and they couldn't back up because there was a stoplight behind. And so the person behind me, I'm looking in her eyes, and she's going, "I can't back up." And I'm just seeing her eyes get bigger and bigger as I'm watching this vehicle rolling onto me. And it literally was a moment where the tire was on my leg, pushing me into the ground, and was about to roll up my body. And I had this moment. And when you said earlier, when your faith kicks in, when there's a moment where you have an undeniable belief that comes forward. So I still don't know if I did this out loud or if I did it internally in my memory of the situation. It was more of an internal. But I scream as loud as I could to every spirit, God, Jesus, Mary Magdalene, I was like, "Do not let me die."
Yes.
And I probably had about 30 seconds to maybe 45 seconds before I had a several-ton vehicle that was running on top of me. And something magical happened, Janie.
Tell me.
So in this moment, I felt something that actually led me to find my career now with the subconscious reprogramming, because I was like, what was that? There was something that happened. So I'm laying there, the car's rolling over me, and I'm just did this internal scream for help.
Right. God help me.
And it was answered. All of a sudden, my older son, who at the time was maybe 9, he said he felt an urge to touch something on the vehicle, and he hit the drive shaft.
Oh, wow.
And so instead of it rolling over me,
it went forward.
Now it's rolling forward.
Oh,
which is a blessing because now I'm no longer about to die. And I'm looking up at the lady, and she's like shaking her head. I still never know who that woman was, but we shared a most intimate moment of my entire life. I have no idea if she could even speak English either. But some things transcend communication. But this burst came out of me right at the same time as my son reached forward. And it felt like a ripple when you put water, those rings that come out of like the water droplet.
I know exactly.
That came out of my body. I felt this like poof.
Wow.
And then the car started driving forward, and then I was no longer dying. But then my mom's senses kick in, and I realized now my car is driving down the road with my children in it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like in shock. I'm laying on the ground. My
How could you even get up?
I don't know. The Holy Spirit must have, the adrenaline and all of it kicked in, and I had left the door open when I had gotten out.
Amazing.
And so I started like hobble running as much as I could, and I grabbed onto the door and I got into the car, and I actually didn't let my children know how close or what had just transpired, I just dropped them off at school.
No.
I went to the parking lot and I cried for several hours.
Oh, I bet.
I had a come to Jesus moment, and I was like, what was that energy? And how you saved me. Like,
Yes.
it was undeniable.
Yes, undeniable.
Yeah.
Undeniable.
And
I would say that the Lord sent angels. There were angels that propelled that was God, Holy Spirit in you, and that was an angel that told your son to reach. Wow.
something happened, but it went from
Wow.
near-death experience to savior within just a
Wow.
very short, and it all happened so quickly.
Crystal,
But
that okay, the part of the story that I don't understand, your children must have known that you were nearly run over by the car.
they knew that I got knocked down, but they didn't know how close that the tire
I
was
see.
literally on top of me because they were still in the vehicle.
I see. They couldn't
so they
see
couldn't
that.
see me.
And you
And I
acted
was
like
in the back right-hand corner where my son was up in the front in the passenger, and then the other one couldn't really see
I see.
because the SUV was up high and then I was down low. So
That
yeah,
is-
they knew I got knocked down. They knew I was rattled because I could only contain so much of it.
Right.
But they didn't really understand
How
the
close you
depths of-
came to dying right
Yeah.
there, really.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And the fact that okay, that's a mom moment. That's that you could hold it together to not frighten your children any more than they already were,
Mhm.
to hold it together, to get them to school. That was miraculous as well. Good for you. Good for God. Good for you.
Yeah.
What a story. That was a life changing.
It changed me.
Yes.
And that was, I would say that was one of those precipices for at the end of
Yes.
that 5 years to say, because I went home to my ex and told him what had happened. And he said, "You look fine."
Oh, really? You look fine. That's all he could say. Oh,
And
Crystal.
I was like, oh my, this person.
He does not get it, and he doesn't care what you just went through.
Mm-mm.
I'm so sorry.
And that was a light bulb moment for me
Yes,
because I
yes.
had that in my childhood where people didn't care about me. And so I left from Colorado to California at 17 years old. So I felt that energy signature. I'm like, oh no, I'm with
someone who,
that
yeah.
just doesn't care about me.
Wow.
And so I had, that was very shortly after, within probably a year, where I finally took action.
So that was how many years ago?
My, probably about, my kids were in elementary school. Yeah. So probably about 8 years ago. Yeah. Yeah.
And you've just become a new person.
I have.
Yes.
It was definitely a defining moment. And I even told a couple people about it that didn't really believe it. And I said, it's okay because I felt it so strongly that there's no way you can deny to me what happened, because that was an experience that
to
will
be
with
honest
me.
with you, I've heard other stories similar, different. We're all so I don't have any doubt in a word you just told us. And I think the audience is probably riveted by hearing that. And it gives hope to everyone. I think my story was less dramatic. I wasn't dying. My life wasn't physically in peril, but my soul was.
Yeah.
My faith was.
Yeah.
My family. Both of my parents died without naming me as their child because I had to stand in the gap for my niece who was being molested, and it was. To think that parents could literally just erase you from their lives, that you wouldn't be invited to their funerals, that you wouldn't be listed as a child. To this day, it brings me to tears. And it challenges me to forgive because they were caught up in a trauma that they didn't understand. Life is, so there we go. Only God knows what each and every one of us are going to go through and how he will be there for us and how he will grow us through it. There was a period of time in my life when I know for a fact that someone close to me prayed that I die, prayed a curse on my life. And someone else prayed over me to break that curse. And I have I have been flourishing forward. So we all need to know God. We need to know, and He loves us. He's after us. God pursues us, and I think that's it's very comforting. It's the lost sheep that the shepherd goes after, because there are times when we aren't able to help ourselves. Yes, we can cry out, but in reality, He was after you through that whole episode. He was after shaking you, awakening you, bringing you to the knowledge that He's real, right?
Yep. Especially as women, we need to receive. That's a
Yes.
big lesson that a lot of women I work with.
Yes.
Boundaries and
Yes.
receiving.
It's so
Yeah.
true. It's so true.
So how do you feel like your faith and your business can help someone that's an entrepreneur?
Very good question. I'm an entrepreneur, and so I understand it. In addition to being in ministry, I started a wholesale gift company. I was an art licensing agent. I've been in business and ministry, and I understand the stresses of business and the challenges of business. And I can look back on those years in my life and know that I walked through those years in faith, because I didn't know anything about the wholesale gift industry. I was led into it. I took a leap of faith. Isn't that entrepreneur?
Yep.
We were like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do this. Boom. And you're in it. And then you say, what have I done?
Like cleaning out the junk drawer. You're too far in. You got to keep going.
Exactly. And yet, in my journey of business, even though it didn't end well because 9/11 hit, so that tells you where that was in my story. I learned so much being an entrepreneur. I wouldn't take those years back for anything. I walked it in through faith. I prayed my way through it. I prayed for the right connections. I prayed for people to meet people. And I'm not saying, it's all just faith. It's also learning business, learning what a spreadsheet looks like. Not that I was ever very good at it. And if you're not good at things, then you find someone who is.
Yeah.
So entrepreneurship is really a great adventure. It doesn't always end well. I heard a statistic recently. I think 75% of all startup businesses fail, but I would say no one really fails. Everyone learns.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone grows. There's things you learn being out there on your own. In fact, people have been into corporate and they've been under the umbrella of someone who's paying all the big bills, and they're just doing their job, whatever they're doing, sales or marketing or whatever part. Even as an executive, you still don't carry the weight of launching, going through the hard part. Mm-hmm. So I've talked to people who go from corporate into entrepreneurship, and they're like, whoa, I didn't know how hard it is to get a company off the ground.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a lot.
So, I would say that strengthening your relationship with God enables you to be creative, to reach beyond yourself, to admit you need help. I think humility is so essential. We need to be able to say, I need help here. Do you know someone? So there's many ways business is helped through faith.
Yeah, being in alignment is key.
It is.
If you're out of alignment, your spirit will find people, places, or situations like Janie and I had that will change that trajectory for your life. And if you're watching this episode, I implore you to tune into that energy. Like
Yes.
Janie said, find that silence, that stillness. A lot of times those answers can come to you within 30 minutes of that silence. Things that you didn't even realize were percolating below the surface. So give yourself some time. Try not to get so caught up in that rat race that you
Yes.
can't be present with
Yes.
your practices.
Yes.
And find people like Janie or myself to help with your spiritual journey or your mental health journey, or even companies like my networking group BNI that allow you to have a lot of resources. Having resources in your life are very valuable tools. So like Janie said, don't be afraid to ask for help in a lot of different areas of your life, and reach out to Janie if you'd like to learn more about her beautiful offerings and retreats that she has coming up. And so before we end, Janie, any final words of wisdom for our audience? And then we'll have you give how they can connect with you.
Well, I would just say that you're not alone. Your journey, everyone has challenges and joy. Life is very messy, if I can say it that way, but you can find joy on the path. There is a way to find peace. If you nourish your soul, you will live more whole. You will rise up out of may I just share a little bit of that first poem that was given to me?
Yes.
These were the words. This was named "Raising a Cathedral." When the world collapses around you, falling into rubble, there is a master architect in charge of all this trouble. He has in mind a cathedral, enlargement of your soul, making more space for majesty with holiness the goal. In order to do some expansion, he needs to tear apart. No matter the devastation, your best interests are in his heart. So let God build a cathedral that nothing on earth can destroy. His ways are mysterious, yet perfect. In the end, you will have great joy. Watch and see with astonishment the wisdom of his plan. You will arise a new creation held in the palm of his hand. That's what I would say.
That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Janie.
Thank you for having me here, Crystal.
It was a divine pleasure. And then how can people reach out to you? Because I'm sure some people would love to share this episode with their friends or family members that might need a little spiritual inspiration. So how can they connect with you?
Well, there's two ways. I would say you might want to write this down, this number down, 866-628-0012. That's the number where you can reach me or Kathy, who you heard about. And also you can go to WC Soul Care, WC Soul Care, and you'll see our offerings. I'm going to be starting a mastermind, and it will be a place where like-minded professional women can come together to be strengthened and encouraged in their whole life, every aspect of their life. So I hope that you can think about that.
Beautiful. Well, please share this episode. This is how we grow, and we look forward to tuning in with you next time. Until then.